And we're recording. I have been loving this 35mm so far. I just got it like 3 days ago, and I am loving what I'm getting. Wow. Anyways, lately I have been trying to read more classic, banned, and challenge books. I think I'm going to make this a whole separate series on my channel just because the nature of it. But I did recently read The Catcher in the Rye and The Handmaid's Tale. And when I say I did read it, I'm technically lying because I did DNF The Catcher in the Rye. And if you don't know what that means, DNF means did not finish. Why am I reviewing it? Technically, I'm not, but I'm just speaking as to why I didn't finish it because I also feel like, well, I do want to read stories of this nature. I also still want to enjoy them, and I just was not enjoying this book in the slightest. I thought about this morning, actually. This is the back of the book, and this is the front. There are no words. I went into this book blind. I did not know what it was about. I did not know what plot was really supposed to be going on and how this was supposed to unravel. So as I was reading this, I felt like it was super slow. And for the record, I did get paid to page like 154. So that is over half because this is 275 pages long. And I just did not see the point in this. I felt like it was progressing so slowly. It was almost stagnant to me in a way. And even if I did read this when I was a teenager, which I was kind of surprised as to why I didn't read it in high school, and then I picked it up, and as I was reading, I thought, oh, this is probably why I never opened this, and I don't think this was ever required reading for me, and if it was, I definitely used Spark Notes for it, because this was not something I enjoyed. The way Holden is written kind of really threw me off, and not even in a way, I could understand why he's like a disgruntled teenager. He's 17 years old. I feel like he had way too much time on his hands. I do understand a death in the family can throw you in a loop and just create this void and cycle. Trust me, I get it. But I feel like there wasn't enough emotional content in this for me to really connect with Holden. And I don't know, it was just repetitive in ways where things did not need to be repeated. And I understand that Holden doesn't like himself because he's hypocritical. As much as he goes around throughout the world and be like, you're putting on a face, you're putting on a show, this isn't real, you're not being authentic. He's doing the exact same thing as he's going out throughout New York and his school. So I did get that, very much so. I just did not enjoy it. No. The Handmaid's Tale. I think this book is a very important story to read, especially with things that have been going on recently in the US and around the world. Because even though something is labeled as fiction, it might not be real now, but it can be real later, or something very similar could happen. Because once an idea is put out there, it becomes more tangible. Ideas and hope are two very hard things to get rid of once they exist in the world. And that's why I think people should read stories like this. Now, the only issue I really had with this is I don't think I really enjoy this writing style. And I think that's the only thing I will say. It just kind of threw me off how you're being told her story, but then it comes back to present time and going back into the future. I think at some points it was just a weird way to tell this story. I did enjoy the story, just not the way that it was written. Kind of like you can like a cake, but recipes have different things for the same kind of cake. I don't know. One of the things I did want to talk about with this book is in some reviews I saw that people argued there was really no character development or character growth. And I completely disagree with that 100%, and here's why. Our main character was living a very normal life, normal for her normal in society. It seemed like there was a lot of things going on that were not very ideal. And then she was pulled into this training, this indoctrination, and it was the only way that she could survive, so she had to give a part of herself to that. Being in a situation like that is super hard because you want to survive, but you also want to stay your own person. However, She didn't know where Luke was, and she didn't know where her daughter was, but they had her somewhere in the system, and she was worried about her. Luke, I didn't give two shits about. At first, I thought he could have been a sweetheart, and then I realized that he's probably actually an asshole, especially after, in the middle of the book, when Offred is describing him and how she kind of felt he enjoyed her having to rely on him so much. But even before then, he was a cheater, and I really just don't enjoy those kind of people in general, so I was already skewed from the start. Going back to this indoctrination, if you're not familiar with how these things can go, I suggest looking up documentaries about tribes in Africa and children who are taken to be soldiers and then being rescued from that, and how hard it is to get them to just feel safe and feel normal. And I really just suggest you go watch it, because once you are pulled into something like that, it is so hard to find yourself again. And where I argue there's character development is by the mid to end of this. Even in the beginning, there are some questions, there is some doubt, and she might be holding herself back a little bit more just for the sake of her daughter. But by the end, she's way more free thinking. She's breaking rules. I think that speaks volumes for someone who had been to this training, who had been indoctrinated, and is trying to break out. Now, it wasn't always there throughout the story. For example, when the Japanese tourist came in, and it was described that she has not seen a skirt so short since before all this started going on. And the skirt was below knee length, and she thought she was kind of being risque and how she would never dress like that. That part is still deeply embedded in her, and you can't really blame her at this point for what she had been going through and what she's still currently going through. I feel like I might have just said the same thing twice, but I think you understand my point. Now, I think that does count as character development. Again, if you're not familiar with things like that, or you've never seen it, you can also go look at extremist organizations, and they kind of do the same thing. And it doesn't even have to be children. This applies to adults as well. And I think that's important for people to understand. And I know some people may be thinking, well, ideas like that, it can't be that bad. Unless you have spoken to someone that has been in that kind of way, just these ideals are so deeply embedded into them. I think it's kind of harder to understand, and I have seen a little bit of it, but I think this would be a very important read. One thing I did want to note while I was editing, I forgot to say this, there was also another review where this person was saying that something like this would not be happening overnight. Oh, bro, please. And if someone does have an agenda like this, they're going to have things put in place to make transitions like this easier, and things like this are much easier to do when there is no government or a person or entity for someone in the masses to look to for direction. And if these people have... Thank you, baby. Thank you. If these people... Oh my goodness. Okay. I love you too, but chill. If people have agendas like this, they're going to have fail-safes and other things in place to make this transition as easy as possible for them to get through. And if you look, it seems like in this world there are a lot of things that we don't know about that have happened, so it's not an insane idea to think that what transpired or what happened had transpired. Does revolution take time? Yes, but also those changes can be very, very fast, especially if people want things to happen quickly. If things are done quickly and implemented, it is a lot easier for it to stay like that, especially when what was previously known is wiped out. And people looking for that guidance, that direction, are not going to be as prominent in speaking out against it, just out of fear or the unknown or not having said direction. I'm gonna edit this in. I hope that makes sense. That was my thought process on that, but okay, back to the regular video. One thing I did want to say, and feel free to debate this in the comments, but on the back of this first word for the review is funny. I'm not sure if you can see that. But then another line down, it says satirical. There is nothing in this book that I find funny, and I didn't really see satire in this at all, if we're being totally honest. Could it have gone over my head? Maybe, but I think this is a very worrying idea to be out there, and that might largely be because I'm a female, but I didn't find this funny. I found this disturbing. That's just me personally, I guess, but I found nothing about this story to be funny at any point in time. Yeah, I'm just thinking about everything, what everyone is going through in here, and I don't find any of this funny. I definitely would have either been put down, or I would have tried to flee the country claiming a religion, and then probably be put down because I was not proficient in said religion. But that's, again, just me. I guess those were just my initial thoughts after reading both of these. Again, I'm gonna make more of an effort to read these kind of books. If you have any suggestions too, feel free to read them in the comments. I am reading Crime and Punishment. I'll say that loosely because I actually haven't opened it up in a little bit. But that, I think, is the only book I currently have. Oh, I do have The Count of Monte Cristo, and I'm saving that because I have not been in the mood to read, but I know I'm going to enjoy that, so I want to save it so I can kind of savor it and just move slowly through it. But yeah, if you have any thoughts about what I've said or about these two books in general, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you next video.